Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at the God of Small Things. We've got excerpts that focus on the twins Rahel and Esta and their mother Amu. And what I thought was so interesting about these excerpts is how like seemingly ordinary objects like childhood notebooks can unlock these huge truths about the characters and their relationships.
Yeah, you know what really strikes me is the way that Roy uses these objects.
Mhm.
They're not just like props or background details. They're these really like emotionally weighty anchors in the narrative. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And we see that right away in Pappachi's study where Rahel finds those notebooks.
Yeah.
The description that Roy gives us with the disintegrated butterflies and the forgotten hula hoop and even like a line of marching ants, it creates this really thick atmosphere of decay and abandonment. What do you think about that?
I think it's really brilliant how she does that. You know, she sets this tone of loss and the kind of the relentlessness of time right from the start. And that really, I think, is key to understanding the emotional landscape of the entire novel.
Yeah.
You know, imagine being Rahel, you walking into that room. I think you'd almost feel the past sort of physically pressing down on you.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then among all of this, she finds these wisdom exercise notebooks. It's like stumbling on a time capsule from their childhood, right? It's
Yeah.
filled with their writing and Amu's corrections, which is really poignant when you consider what happens later.
Yeah, definitely. Those notebooks really highlight this brutal contrast, I think, between, the innocence of their past and the harsh reality that they face later on. It's not just, a reminder of what's lost, but also how that loss really shapes who they become. Take Esta's name, for instance. In the notebook, it's changed to S happen unknown. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's such a loaded detail. I mean, just that one word, unknown, speaks volumes about his emotional state after being sent back to his father. And even the word sent, right? It feels cold and impersonal, like he's some kind of package instead of a child.
Exactly. That sense of displacement, of not belonging, it echoes in Esta's writing too. You
Yeah.
know, if you compare Rahel's story about Ulysses, which is so playful and full of like childhood wonder, to Esta's little Amu story, it's like you're looking into their souls.
You know, I see exactly what you mean. There's that childhood wonder in Rahel's story, but Esther's story is so full of this quiet sadness, almost like he's already carrying the weight of the world on his small shoulders.
Yeah, their writing really becomes this reflection of their very different journeys, wouldn't you say? Rahel's holding on to that last bit of innocence, while Esta's inner turmoil is just laid bare on the page.
And then there's Emu. As we move through these excerpts, it's impossible to ignore her deterioration, right? Roy's portrayal of her physical appearance, her anxieties, her increasingly erratic behavior, it's all so vividly described.
Yeah, and what strikes me is Amu's desperate attempt to deny time's passage, especially during her final visit. The gifts that she brings for Rahel, the cigarette sweets, the comic book, they're so inappropriate for her age, almost like she's trying to freeze Rahel in a time that no longer exists.
It's heartbreaking, right? It's like she's trying to shield them from the pain of growing up, but by doing so, she's also blinding herself to the reality of their situation.
Absolutely. And that denial leads to even greater pain when Amu dies,
Yeah.
alone in a cheap hotel room, so far from the life she envisioned for herself and her children. It's a stark contrast to the vibrant woman we see glimpses of in those notebooks.
The way that Roy describes her death is so chilling. The image of the ants carrying off a dead cockroach, it's disturbing, but also strangely matter-of-fact, like a cruel lesson in the indifference of nature.
Yeah, Roy doesn't shy away from the harshness of death, does she? Even in death, Amu is denied dignity. The church refuses to bury her, and her cremation takes place in this rundown facility that's really meant for the destitute.
And that scene where Rahel and Chaco are driving Amu's body to the crematorium is so poignant.
Right.
Life outside the van is just carrying on completely oblivious to their grief, while inside they're consumed by this immense loss.
It's that juxtaposition that I find so powerful. You know, the way Amu's body is jostling around in the back of the van, her head hitting the metal bolt, it's like Roy's highlighting the world's indifference to their grief, you know? Life and death just keep moving, regardless of our personal tragedies.
And then that pink receipt for Amu's ashes, it's such a like bureaucratic detail, but it really represents this whole life reduced to just ashes and paperwork.
Yeah, it's a powerful symbol of their loss, isn't it?
Yeah.
A tangible reminder of Amu's absence. And it's significant that Esta, the keeper of records, isn't there to collect it.
He's physically separated from his family, but we see this emotional distance growing too. Rahel can't even bring herself to write to him about Amu's death.
The trauma of their shared experience has created this rift between them, this silence that's just too painful to bridge. Makes you wonder if some wounds are just too deep to ever truly heal.
And that final image of Esther leaving through the gate is so haunting. The green light, the rain, the cock's crow, it's loaded with symbolism, don't you think?
Definitely. It's the culmination of everything we've witnessed. The loss, the separation, the feeling that something precious has been broken beyond repair.
Yeah.
It's like Roy is saying that some goodbyes are forever.
It's interesting how that last scene with Esta kind of mirrors that earlier performance of Welcome Home, our Sophie Mall. It's subtle, but it feels like Roy's sort of reminding us how quickly life can change, in an instant.
Yeah, that parallel, I think, is really key. It
Yeah.
underscores how fragile their childhood innocence was, how easily it was shattered by the events that unfolded. And that gate becomes such a powerful symbol, right? It represents both departure and this point of no return.
It's like closing a chapter, but not in a neat and satisfying way. More like ripping a page out, leaving this jagged edge.
Exactly. And, this theme of personal loss that we see so clearly with Amu and the twins, it also connects to the broader political context of the novel, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's not just their individual losses, right? There's this sense of collective loss, this loss of innocence for entire community.
Right. Think about the historical backdrop of the novel. The emergency in India, the rise of communism in Kerala. These events cast a long shadow over the characters. They shape their choices and even their whole worldview.
Yeah, it's in those smaller details, isn't it? Like Amu's fear of being mistaken for a prostitute and having her hair chopped off. It speaks volumes about the kind of violence and oppression that were just part of life back then.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the vulnerability of women, especially those who dared to challenge societal norms. Amu's expulsion from the family, her struggles to survive her tragic end in that seedy hotel room, it all points to the precarious position that she held in that society.
It's like she's being punished for her independence,
Yeah.
for her refusal to fit into the mold that they created for her.
And that punishment ultimately leads to her tragic end. She becomes a victim both of societal forces and also of her own internal struggles.
It's incredibly sad. Yet there's still this glimmer of hope, wouldn't you say? I mean, the twins, despite being separated and enduring so much trauma, they still share this incredibly deep connection.
Yeah, that connection is never truly severed. Even though they struggle to express it directly, it's there in their shared memories, the way their thoughts and dreams seem to intertwine.
It's like their bond transcends distance, even death. The way they remember Amu, their shared past, it's a way of keeping her alive, holding on to that last piece of their childhood.
And those memories pave the way for their eventual reunion. It's a long and difficult journey, but their shared past becomes the foundation for their reconciliation.
We've talked about those childhood notebooks as these tangible links to their memories. But what about those objects that Amu gives to Rahel during that last visit? Those seem to represent a very different side of memory, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, those gifts, the cigarette sweets, the comic book, they're not just random presents. They're symbols of Amu's own childhood, a time before loss and hardship really took over.
It's like she's trying to give Rahel a piece of that lost innocence, right? A reminder of a happier time.
But those gifts are so out of sync with Rahel's current reality.
Okay.
She's not a little girl anymore. And those objects really highlight the growing gap between them.
It's Amu's inability to connect with her daughter in the present because she's so fixated on the past. You just can't recapture lost time, no matter how desperately you try.
And that's a really key takeaway here.
Mm.
I think memory is powerful, but it's also a double-edged sword.
Mm.
It can sustain us, but it can also trap us, prevent us from moving on.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, isn't it? Honoring the past, but also embracing the present and looking ahead to the future.
Exactly, and that's the challenge I think Roy presents to both the characters and us as readers. How do we navigate those complexities without letting memory consume us? How do we find meaning and hope amidst loss and trauma?
It's a question that hits home for anyone who's experienced personal loss or witnessed, upheaval in the world around them.
And that's a testament to Roy's brilliance. She explores these complex themes with such nuance and emotional depth, making us confront those tough questions, grapple with the messy reality of human experience.
She doesn't offer easy answers, but she makes us think, doesn't she?
Absolutely. And through the characters' journeys, we're invited to examine our own relationship with memory, to think about how our past shapes us and the choices we make.
So, circling back to the notebooks for a moment, why do you think it's significant that Rahel finds them in Pappachi's study? It's not just a random location, is it?
You're right. The setting is crucial. Pappachi's study is filled with remnants of his past. The decaying butterflies, those dusty books. It's a space frozen in time. much like Pappachi himself, trapped in bitterness and regret.
It embodies this stagnation, this inability to move on. And by finding the notebooks there, Rahel confronts not just her own past, but also the weight of her family's legacy.
Precisely. The past isn't something we can simply leave behind. It lingers, it shapes us, it influences our present and future, whether we like it or not.
And the notebooks become this bridge between generations,
Right.
linking Rahel's childhood to her family's history.
And that connection is strengthened by Amu's corrections in those notebooks. It's a reminder of her presence, even in her absence. Her words, her thoughts, they continue to influence the twins long after she's gone.
It's as though she's still trying to guide them, even from beyond the grave.
And those corrections also highlight the power dynamics within the family, right? Amu, despite her love, she's bound by societal constraints. She's expected to mold her children, make them fit into society's expectations.
And that pressure, that need to conform, ultimately contributes to her downfall. She's torn between protecting her children and the societal pressures that dictate how she should raise them.
It's a tragic irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
Her attempts to shield them actually lead to her own destruction.
And that destruction is even more heartbreaking because she dies without seeing Esta again. They're denied closure, reconciliation.
That lack of closure becomes a defining part of their lives. It leaves this gaping wound, this unanswered question of what might have been.
It's a reminder that life doesn't always offer these neat resolutions. Sometimes we're left with the messy, unresolved pieces of the past.
And it's in those pieces, those seemingly insignificant details. That's where Roy finds the most profound truths about the human experience.
It's as if she's saying that even amidst loss and tragedy, there's beauty to be found in the everyday, in the memories that we carry.
Absolutely. And those memories, no matter how painful, become a part of who we are. They shape our understanding of the world and our place within it.
I think what you're getting at is that Roy is really urging us to pay attention.
Right.
Not just to the big moments, but to those things that we often overlook, both in our own lives and in the world around us.
Exactly. She's asking us to consider the weight, the meaning of those seemingly insignificant details, to recognize that even the most, mundane object can hold this profound story.
Yeah.
Just waiting to be uncovered.
It's like she's saying that history isn't just about major events and, famous figures. It's also about the everyday lives of ordinary people. And those lives are often shaped by forces beyond their control.
Absolutely. Roy really gives a voice to the marginalized.
Right.
Those who are often forgotten or overlooked by history.
And we see that in her portrayal of Amu defying societal expectations and ultimately paying a heavy price for her independence.
And it's not just Amu. The twins are victims of circumstance, too. They're caught in this crossfire of family secrets and societal prejudice. Their childhood is stolen, their innocence shattered by these events that they barely even comprehend.
And yet they find ways to cope, right? To create their own world of meaning and connection amidst all of that chaos.
Yeah, that's the resilience of the human spirit, when you say. Even in the face of unimaginable loss, we find ways to survive, to find moments of joy and connection.
And often those moments are rooted in the simplest things: a shared memory, a treasured object, a fleeting image that evokes this whole flood of emotions.
It's those small details that anchor us, that give us this sense of continuity and belonging. They remind us of who we are, where we come from, and what truly matters in the grand scheme of things.
Which brings us back to that thought-provoking question you raised earlier. How do those objects from our past serve as these tangible connections to our memories? And how do they shape our understanding of who we are?
Well, it's a question we each have to answer for ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think Roy's work offers us some really valuable insights. She shows us that these objects aren't just inanimate things. They're imbued with meaning and emotion. They become these vessels of our experiences, our joys and our sorrows, our deepest fears and our longings.
It's like they hold these pieces of ourselves that we might otherwise lose or forget along the way.
Precisely. And by revisiting those objects, by engaging with those memories, we can gain this deeper understanding of who we are and how we've evolved into the people we are today.
It's a process of rediscovering ourselves through those traces we've left behind, both physically and emotionally.
And that process can be both challenging and rewarding. It might force us to confront some painful truths, but it can also lead to those aha moments, those flashes of insight and connection that make it all worthwhile.
It's as though those objects become these portals to our past, allowing us to travel back in time and re-experience those moments that shaped us.
And by revisiting those moments, by understanding their impact on our lives, we gain a greater appreciation for the complex tapestry of human experience. We see how our individual stories are really interwoven with this broader fabric of history and culture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the God of small things, What final thought would you leave our listeners with?
I would encourage our listeners to reflect on their own relationship with memory. What objects from their past hold a special significance for them? What stories do those objects tell? And how have those stories shaped their understanding of themselves and the world around them? It's a journey worth taking, even if it leads to some unexpected destinations.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that the past is never truly gone. It lives within us, shaping our present and guiding our future. By engaging with our memories, by embracing the stories that they tell, we can find meaning, purpose, and even a glimmer of hope amidst life's inevitable losses. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the God of small things. Until next time,